Hey yo, it's your boy Kaliko. Now I know it's been a while since I posted a video on this channel or on any channel, to tell you the truth, and I've just had a lot going on in my life, but I think it's about time that I start posting videos again as much as possible and about anything half-ass interested that you might be interested in watching. So today what we're going to do is I'm going to revisit a video I made previously about muriatic acid, hydrochloric acid, and fire agate, and how it is beneficial, but in my mind, not really. I had heard about this method when I first started digging fire agate, and when I did it the first time, the piece of fire agate I used had no calcite on it and really didn't have any organic material that the muriatic acid could remove from the stone itself. Now what I have learned is that the muriatic acid is not going to affect the agate in any way, shape, or form. If there is some iron limonene on top, it could take care of that and eat it away a little bit. Now if there's calcite or any other type of softer stone that is below a certain hardness, then the muriatic acid will definitely eat that up. If I were to leave a opal, say, for instance, in muriatic acid, more than likely the muriatic acid would eat that opal up. Now that might be a science experiment for later, but not what we're going to be doing today. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be putting this piece, this beautiful hunk of fire agate, in the muriatic acid. Now it has great calcite terminations on it all over it, so we're definitely going to see a reaction out of this piece of fire agate. But one of the other things about this giant hunk of fire agate is there is a section on the bottom that is flat that is definitely showing fire. So we're going to be able to see if after soaking this for a while to where all the calcite is gone, if it really does affect the fire agate and the fire in the agate itself, which even though it's on the surface, I really don't think it's going to. Now I do believe that some of the places and fissures inside of this piece of fire agate will be affected, and this piece of fire agate will break into many other smaller pieces, is really what I'm expecting. So I'm going to give you a close-up of this piece of fire agate, and then we're going to move on. But before we do that, I did want to say that safety precautions are a big deal. So the safety precautions we're going to be using today is I'm not going to dip my hands into muriatic acid, although I've had plenty of people online try and tell me that it's safe. It's not, and the fumes are not safe either. So if you have a respirator, you should definitely use that. If you're going to do something like this, you definitely want to be doing it outside. And anytime you're working with any sort of acid, you want to be using something that's going to neutralize that acid. In case you splash, in case you spill, in case you get it on you in any way, you need to have your neutralization solution handy before you ever start playing with your acids. And that's just a good rule of thumb anytime you're doing anything like this. One other thing I forgot. All of my computers are down at the moment. I am back to recording on an iPhone right now, and I'm going to be editing on an iPhone. So if we end up having some, if there's some stuff you're not used to, it might be because I'm back on my iPhone, yet being back on an iPhone does give me the ability to actually continue making videos. Although I did sell one of my microphones for my iPhone, so that sort of sucks. Now the piece of fire agate we're going to start with is this right here. And the amount of work it took to get this out of the ground in one whole piece like this by hand with no jackhammers or anything was really amazing, ridiculous. It was difficult. So the reason that you do something like that, or I do something like that, is in hopes that you will have a ginormous gemstone that sells for much more money than a bunch of broken pieces would end up selling for. Now this is showing actual fire agate right there. There is definitely color in that section. Getting a shot from this angle might be a little bit difficult. I might need to go get a flashlight. Now this piece of agate has a lot of stuff going in on it. It has a lot of stuff going on in it. It has calcite terminations on top of the agate. You can see all here. It has some dirt crevices and rock crevices stuck in it. And then this section right here is actually showing fire. In order for you to see it, I think I need to get it wet a little bit, which we know how I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna lick the rock. And let's see if I can get it to focus. And I think you can see the green and red of fire that is in the bottom of that piece. So we definitely have a nice sized chunk of fire agate right there in the bottom, and it's gonna make a huge stone, I believe. And we should be able to see more of that after I pull this out of the muriatic acid. So this is the first piece that we're gonna start with. And depending on how this video goes, I might put some other pieces in there. Now this thing weighs a good 5 pounds, I'm thinking. Definitely thinking it feels like a good 5 pounds. It's hard for me to hold up, it's so large. And it probably took me a half a day to get this out of the ground by hand after it was discovered, because getting these things out of the ground whole is extremely difficult. One of the first things I'm gonna do is get my neutralization solution going. Oh, whoops, I started to open it at the wrong end. That should be plenty of baking soda. I've got my gloves. I've got my muriatic acid. Last time I did this, I diluted this. There was no need to do that, and I'm not gonna do it this time. Pretty much this muriatic acid is going to affect what it's going to affect, and it's not going to affect anything that is over a certain hardness. Now, I got this little strainer. This is a pool catch for catching, you know, frogs and snakes and whatever falls inside of your pool. And I figured this would be good to have at the bottom of my muriatic acid bucket, so that if there are any smaller fire agate stones that I don't have to dig around and find them with my hand, I can just put this at the bottom and lean the piece in there, and it should end up helping me catch any smaller pieces of fire agate that might end up becoming loose from the calcite being ate away by the muriatic acid, or even, you know, some of the natural rock or softer dirt that's in there might end up dissolving also. That's the word, I'm looking for the word dissolving. My brain really didn't want to think of that. And also, as stated previously, I definitely want to have my neutralization solution right next to where I'm going to be using my acid. Now, this fits perfectly inside of there, but it does have a piece sticking up that might end up being bigger than the gallon size. So I think I'm gonna stick this on its side a little bit like that, so it's not quite as tall. See if you can see that a little bit better. It's not quite in the trench thing the way I would have it. At the same time, I don't want to, it's not in the filter bucket or the straining bucket the way I would like to have it, but it's just not quite big enough. And what I don't want to do is make it so tall that the muriatic acid is not covering everything. So I'm going to pull this out right now, and I am going to stick the whole gallon of muriatic acid inside of this, which this stuff's obviously been sitting around the Lowe's I got it from for a while. Now you want to be really careful. Keep your face away from it, especially if you're pouring it like this. You don't want any splashing on your face, anywhere near your eyes. And you don't want to breathe the fumes. I'm making sure that the wind is at my back, so the fumes, I can see little puffs of smoke while it's going in here, because there is some organic material in the bottom that's already being affected by that. The acid is already affecting minorly, a couple little leaves and some dirt. It's best you wear a respirator when you're messing with this stuff, 1000%. Unfortunately, my paint respirators aren't here. Just be on the safe side. Get that, my neutralization solution. And here we go. That's what happens with muriatic acid or hydrochloric acid when you add calcite to it. That is a definite reaction. There's no question that we have stuff in there that the muriatic acid is working on. Now, if you watch my previous video, this was not happening at all in that video because there was nothing but agate on that piece. And the agate itself is just too hard for the muriatic acid to have any effect on it. Now, this time-lapse video can be a bit deceiving. It would make it seem like it only took a few minutes for the muriatic acid to do its work, whereas in reality, I had it in this bucket of muriatic acid for a couple of hours before I flipped it over and let the acid do its work on the calcite that was on the other side of the fire agate. Now, it looks like the bottom of this stone is still bubbling a little bit, but it might even be the top or the sides. I am going to definitely need to flip it over so that the top side with the calcite gets a full work of the muriatic acid too, but the acid itself has turned almost black. And it's definitely been having some effect. Oh yeah, stuff is falling off of it. Flip it upside down and rinse my gloves in the neutralization solution, and flipping it upside down, definitely let it go right back to work. Well, it's been sitting in its muriatic acid for, I would say, roughly 3, maybe 4 hours, probably 3 right about now. I didn't look at the time, but I know it's been in there for 3. It still has some smoke coming out of it and some minor bubbling. And that pretty much means that it's still working in crevices and on some material that the acid can eat away. So I'm gonna leave it for a little while more, at least another hour. I want it to stop bubbling, but then the amount of time that I've had it in the acid, I need to put it in the neutralization solution for at least double that amount of time. And the reason you want to do that is you want to give all of the cracks and porous area and crevices time to get the neutralization solution in there so that all of the acid is totally neutralized. Because it would be bad for you if you took it out, put it in neutralization solution, and then later had some acid come pouring out of a crevice or something where the acid was not actually neutralized. So a good piece of advice is put it in the neutralization solution for double the amount of time that you had it in the acid. All right, all the bubbles have stopped happening. Now it's time to move the specimen from our acid bucket into our neutralization bucket. Now we'll leave it in here for a while and let the solution do its work to neutralize all that acid. All right, well, my fire agate specimen has been in there plenty of time to neutralize all the acid and get in all the areas. And you can tell from all the bubbling and stuff like that that it's got a coating of baking soda on top of it, which you just move it around and that'll take that coating off because it's just a really light coating. Now what we're going to see is that none of the agate was really affected, but that all of the calcite was heavily affected. So all of our calcite terminations are gone. We have a really great agate vug going deep back in there. It's really deep. Really, really deep going back in that crevice back there. But it really didn't give us any of a fire agate color show on top at all. You know, it's not showing any fire agate anywhere, but now the stuff is so weak, some of the areas, because it doesn't have any of the calcite holding it together, and some of the rock and mud has been moved, that it just flakes off. Now, it won't happen over the whole thing, but you can definitely see that some of it, see what I mean? It's just breaking off right there. Which I don't want to poke any holes in this glove, so I should be really careful doing that, because this is going to be for getting into dipping other pieces of stone inside of an acid solution. If I poke holes in this glove, then the acid will get into my hand. But we can definitely see that there's plenty of agate that looks like it would have fire in it. Whoops, that looks like a piece of fire agate right there. Not much color in that. But this disc right here, we can really see the shape of the agate that's there, that's going to have fire in it. I should stop doing that with these gloves. And so this is what our giant hunk of agate looks like. And then this piece right here, I can totally see colors on there. Let me go get a flashlight. This is a giant piece of fire agate, giant hunk of fire agate rough. It definitely has fire agate in it. This piece right here is a not sure if I can get the camera to pick it up the way that I'm seeing it, but I can definitely see gem color in that. There's definitely red and a little bit of green and some orange poking through. And it's a piece bigger than the size of my thumb. See how close I can get it. So that's one piece of fire agate that's in this giant hunk of agate in general. And it's got a nice cave on it. Huge vug, goes way back in there. Like, that vug goes way back in there. Yet, the fire agate is formed. The way the fire agate is formed, you never know. And not typically would a whole giant piece like this end up having one continuous run of fire through it. Typically, you'll have it in a section or a piece or something like that. But you can see that with this experiment, unlike the last one, you can see a big difference between the agate piece that I started with and the agate piece that I'm finishing with. Now, after making 2 of these videos, I am personally of the opinion that using muriatic acid to release the fire agate from matrix, or to get the calcite off of the fire agate, is just a waste and a pollutant that's unneeded. The reality is that the calcite is so soft that if you just use typical carving tools, like you would carve a gem piece of fire agate, you can remove it quicker and easier, and it's not even barely going to affect your diamond tip tools, because it's not near as hard as the actual agate is. So I don't really think this is a good method, and the only reason I did it was to answer some of the questions that I've had on my previous run of doing this type of video, and to show that the original poster of this, they were posting it to easily remove calcite, but the reality is that if you're going to use diamond tools, there's no need to remove the calcite. Unless you're looking for a finished specimen that's not going to have all the calcite covering anything up, that's a pretty good reason. But in general, if you're going to carve fire agate, you should just go ahead and use wheels and hand tools to carve fire agate, because that's the way you're going to end up with the best piece of gemstone. It's definitely not going to be from just dropping it in Nevada acid. You're not going to come back and have a perfectly amazing gemstone. It just doesn't quite work like that. I plan on bringing you guys more videos here real soon. Now at the moment, all of my computers are down and I have no way to process any of the video off of my cameras that I've purchased, and I have no ability to use my microphone. So I'm going to be recording videos back on my iPhone. Now the one thing about using a phone to do recording is that it's rather easy to edit on the phone and transfer it from the phone onto the website, whereas using a computer, it takes a lot longer. It is a much more arduous process, and since I use multiple cameras and a different audio source, it's just a lot more editing time. So I'm going to try and pump some interesting videos out for you guys, and I'm talking to a friend of mine about maybe going digging with her and creating some more digging videos for you too. Most of the videos will be related to rocks and gemstones in one way or another, but I think I'm going to do some other random videos also. Being that I haven't posted much recently, I think I'd rather just be posting some sort of video of any kind than no sort of video of any kind. So it's been a while since I've done this. Thank you for being here on the ride with me. I love you for watching, and I'll see you in the dirt.